Hi class, welcome back. Again, my name is Miss Celine, and right now we are going to talk about the continuation and the next topic for our lesson today, which is globalization. And this is under the contemporary world. So this is the second topic. So in our previous lesson, we were able to discuss and also start defining globalization and what it's all about. Right now, we're going to have an in-depth understanding of what globalization is all about and how does it affect our contemporary world right now. So for our learning objectives, first we are going to identify the various globalizations and determine the relationship among and between them. Second is discuss the metaphor in describing how globalization works and why is it called inexorable. And third, explain why material and ideal are called the drivers of globalization. And lastly is we're going to describe those who are globophilia and also globophobia. Okay, so in our previous lesson, I was able to discuss to you the different dynamics of globalization. Actually, I was able to explain to you at least the surface of what is globalization is all about and what is it at least doing in our world. So globalization, that's why it's called globalization. It is an intense or a change that's currently happening in our world today. So actually it's not a straight path. It's not just simply as that. So everything is changing. It's not just simply that. So globalization actually occurs in the following. So first, economic. Second, political. Third, cultural. Fourth, religion. Fifth, science. Health and medicine, followed by sport. And lastly is the education. So as you can see here, globalization is actually diverse. It's actually spreading out. It's not just a one line. Actually, it's not, other people think of it only as technology. It's not actually. It actually composes of everything. Our education, our sport, everything is changing. And that's what is globalization is all about. So now let's go to the first one. Our first globalization is economic. So the economic is one of the main barometer of globalization. Again, I have to emphasize this so much. It is the barometer of globalization. So why is it called barometer? So because this is the one that entails or actually shows us how our world is actually changing. So our economics right now, like for example, if we're going to check out how is the Philippines currently, so actually we have 1 peso, in every $1 is equivalent to 56 pesos. So that's a huge amount. Just for us to afford a piece of candy or whatever that costs us $1 in the United States will cost us 56 pesos first. So it shows us that even before in our time, I can actually pay 4 pesos just to ride the jeepney. Now the minimum pesos is 12 pesos. And before you can actually buy a pandesal for a peso. But right now it's no longer a peso. It consists of at least 7 pesos if I'm not mistaken. So as you can see, that's one of an example that actually there is a change. There is a change that's going on in our lives and it keeps on changing every day. So right now our jeepney ride is actually 12 pesos. And there's news right now circulating that it will now increase to 14 pesos. So as you can see, that's actually one of the signs that there is a globalization. And economics is a sign of globalization. It is the great barometer of globalization. The next one is politics. So let me just read this first. Politics, political relations that exist at a global level, including international relations. For example, UN, terrorist org, and then like the Al-Qaeda. Okay. So our politics also change. So before, here in our country, people really like a politician who is up to the people, who actually spread out their way, spread their arms and actually hug people, and who is very kind to the people, and many more. But actually that changed. Like for example, when Duterte won, he is very good in people. He hugs people indeed. However, his approach is very much different. He is a kamay na bakal, or a hand of steel, or a man who actually stands to his principles, what is right and what is wrong. So he actually he is the one who pushed through the war on drugs, even though a lot of lives, well, they claim that it actually had a lot of deaths. Well, it's still under investigation, but as you can see, the transition of people voting, their action of actually how voting is, their preferences on the leader actually changes over time, and the from kind to someone who is kamay na bakal, or someone who is actually in depth, or who's very much willing to instill discipline among people. As you can see, that's actually a sign of globalization as well. So in here it was mentioned like the terrorists, the Al-Qaeda. The reason why these groups are, or the activists, there are activists in the world. The reason why there are activists, like for example here in our country, there are a lot of there are activists roaming around or whatever, and they're actually recruiting. So the very reason why there are activists, because they are not fond of the ideas of the current leaders who are running their place. So the evidence of having an activist is actually a sign of globalization as well. Next is culture. Let me just read this first. Cultural influences that exist between and among nations at a global level. So for example, Chinese, Korean foods, BBC, Hollywood rather, or Bollywood. So for example, here in our country, let me just use our country first as a sign of how globalization works, and then let me just proceed on the bigger picture, which is around the world. So for example, here in our country, before the issues of LGBTQIA is very much traditional. So before, I believe, well, it's still not that accepted and embraced. However, the topics of LGBTQ, the movies of LGBTQ right now are now open in the public. I mean, not totally open, but it's actually no longer a taboo as before. So that's actually a sign of a change of culture. That's a sign that culture is actually changing, and there is globalization. So as in other countries as well. So in other countries, as you can see before, if you watch movies before, having sex with someone you're not married to is like a sin, or it's like a very traditional, a very sentimental, and it has to be kept. Virginity has to be kept, and it has to be done after the wedding night. The sex itself has to be done after the wedding night. But nowadays, if you've watched movies, international movies, having sex to random people 2 nights a day is I mean, just common to them. I mean, it's not that common, but it is something that it is now open to them, and something that they embrace. I mean, not totally embrace, but it's welcome to them, the idea of that. So as you can see, that's one way why culture change. All right, the next one is what we call the religion. The religion in here, let me just read it first. The global spread of religion through proselytizing, for example, Catholicism from Vatican to other parts of the world. Okay, so as you can see here, in religion, like for example, before, religion can only be seen in the Roman Catholic can be seen in the Vatican. I mean, Christianity before, there are only 2 religions before. That is very much known around the world. Like for example, we have the Roman Catholic, and also the Muslim. But right now, the Roman Catholic has this term of Protestants. So Protestants are now here. I mean, has spread, and it now we have now the sect rather, like the born again and many more. So as you can see, religion is also changing, And also, if you go to a born again service, like in the Catholic right now, Catholic is still traditional. So what people do are often they still just stand and then just sing and then sing praise and worship and then read the Bible. The Bible will be read from the lector. But if you attend a Christian or a born again service rather, they will actually play in a band and people are jumping, they're dancing and many more. They're actually, that's the way of their praise and worship. But before, it's not encouraged. As you can see, that's part of globalization. So the ways and the different behaviors that are currently occurring are part of globalization. The next is the science. Science, in here, let me just read this. Knowledge base is formed by inputs from many parts of the world, and the knowledge is disseminated virtually everywhere. Like for example, scientific journals are now online and can be accessed anytime and anywhere. So before, like on my college days, so I'm not that old, but in my college days, we literally have to go to the library, very famous libraries. You have to go there just to have an access of the current researches and just to actually cite them. But right now, you just have to go to Google, search on the title of the research that you wanted, and then just get it. I mean, just read it and then get the citation. Actually, there are a lot of AIs right now, they will do the citation just for you. And to be honest, there are also AIs that they will actually do the research for you, which I will not tell. Okay, but as you can see, that's globalization. The change in there, the transition from the very traditional down to the modern, that's globalization in science. Next is the health and medicine. Diseases can and do proliferate globally, as is true with diagnosis and treatment. Like for example, COVID-19 virus. The very reason why actually COVID-19 virus spread throughout the world, it became a pandemic, is because of globalization. So why is that? Nowadays, actually, you can just travel as long as you have money, you have the resources to travel and many more, you can just do that. And because of that, and also because of the virus itself, actually the COVID-19 virus, you are all nurses and you have, most of my students here are medical related. So as you can see, the virus itself, COVID-19 virus is actually from a simple virus before. It was actually not a virus, it's not a new virus, it was actually a virus that had existed before, but is currently, it actually mutated, and then that's why it became unstoppable. And that's the time when the pandemic happened, because of COVID-19. Its mutation. So how did it mutated? Because of the people as well. So no one knows actually how they claim that the COVID-19 was a natural mutation, but there's a lot of issues and news telling that it was intended. So I don't know what to say about it, but I don't know what side is true. But one thing is for sure, the spread of COVID-19, how it happened is because of globalization. Next is sports. Global media plays a key role in globalization of sports and creating a global interest in an audience for it. For example, tennis, golf, or soccer. So like for example, here in our country, actually most of the sports that we have are actually adopted from countries, from other countries. So we have a lot of sports like in here, like for example, golf. Golf itself does not came from, it did not originate here in our country. It actually came from another country, and that's, we adapted it and then we put on other traditions on it, some guidelines as well. That is also due to our location and also our territory and the landscape of our landings. So we have to modify some things. But actually, the adaptation and how we modify some games are part of globalization. And it's one of the evidence that globalization is existing. Next one is the education. So higher education have grown increasingly similar, like the graduate programs for also American universities open for franchises in other countries. So here we have the education. So higher education right now, or like for example, college degrees are now can easily be attained. It can be easily attained actually. Before, in the times of my grandparents, only a few graduates high school. A lot of them could only afford elementary, but right now you can actually enroll online. You can actually finish college just staying at home. There are a lot of universities who's offering online college courses that you can actually take as well. Like for example, here in Trinity, so you just have to pay a certain amount and then you're immediately enrolled. And then, that's one of it. So the change, the transition of how our education are becoming affordable, attainable, and easily can be accessed is one sign of globalization. And then also we have here, it was mentioned here, that actually some of American schools are now being franchised in the local countries. Like for example, here in the Philippines. So some of the countries, some of these schools or universities abroad are now being franchised in here. That's why we have international schools. So as you can see, that's also a sign of globalization. So the next question is, what drives globalization? So we have two, the material and also the ideals. Let's go first to material. Material, these are objective factors and forces like productions and technology controlled by capitalism and MNSCs are the drivers of globalization. So one of the very reasons why globalization is really fast right now is because of the technology that we have. So our cell phones right now actually give us an idea of the current trends and news that's happening today. So, and not just only in the Philippines, but also across abroad. So that's the reason why we were able to hear the showbiz from other countries and the little news from their local provinces. It came to our country because it's trending and because it's known. So that's because of the material, and that's because of technology. And both of those is because of globalization. Next is ideals. It is the changes in ideas and knowledge that mainly drives globalization. For example, ideas on global climate and climate change by movies and books. So one of the signs that globalization actually is occurring is because of the different ideas. Okay, so before we have a straight path of what ideas are, what is right and wrong. But right now, a lot of people are questioning what is really right and what is really wrong. And same with the different ideas that we have. So what are the ideas that you have right now? So maybe someone already have an idea to go against it. So that's actually how life works. So the different ideals that we have right now are the drivers of globalization. So these are the ones who give us what is globalization is all about. So globalization, does it hop or flow? Let's talk about it. So hop, what does it mean, hop? So the positive effects of globalization are felt only by few privileged countries, and it only increased the gap between the rich and the poor. So it does hop. However, the effects of the rapid globalization actually occurs in the first world country, second world, and not so much on the third world country, just like us. If there's our slow flowing only. So, but my point here is that it do hop. Globalization happens, the change happens in a hopping stage. However, it just occur in the first world countries. Now let's talk about flows. Flows, global equality with all parts of the world being penetrated by flows to more or less the same degree. So in here, it just says that it flows. That's why it flows, because it flows like a river. If it goes down, everything, it will go at the same pace, at the same quality and quantity as well. So that's one of the aspect of it. So so let's go back to the question, does it hop or does it flow? All right. So actually, it depends. So I was able to not put in here, but it actually depends. So if actually hops only in the first world countries, and then it flows only on the latter or let's say third world countries like us. All right, so is it unstoppable? So we have things to clarify. We have the term globalization from above and globalization from below. So globalization from above, process that is created and controlled by centralized and powerful actors such as wealthy elites or MNCs are imposed on broader society. So in here, in simple terms, the elites are the ones who actually puts down the globalization down to the bottom. So they are the ones who are, those who are powerful are the ones who put down the globalization. And then globalization from below, marginalized groups and social movements that struggle to make globalization benefit more people and for global process to be more democratic. So in here, globalization starts from the bottom and then it goes up. Okay, so let's go back. Globalization from below, globalization from above, it came from above, the people from the elite side, and then it goes below. And then globalization from below, it started from the bottom, and then it goes up. So we have to clarify that how the globalization really works. So to answer the question, is it unstoppable? Actually, no, because people actually get smarter every day. People know things every day, and people tends to question things. So it's unstoppable. It is really unstoppable. Next, are you a globophilia or globophobia? So you decide. So when we say globophilia, these are the people who emphasizes on the positive aspects of globalization, especially great economic success and the spread of democracy. So they love change. They are the ones who actually encourage it. And globophobia, so emphasis on the negative aspect of globalization, especially for the less well-off parts of the globe. So these are the people who actually don't want to continue on the fast-pacing change of the globalization and what it is bringing us. Like for example, here in our country, because of globalization, our peso unfortunately keeps on dropping. And I know it's part of the economic problem of our country, but globalization actually makes our country more poor than others. So now you decide, are you a globophilia? Do you like change? Do you want this kind of globalization that's happening in our world right now? Or a globophobia? So do you despise some of the aspects that are changing in our world and how it affects us? That's globophobia. So there are different views and criticisms of globalization. So first, it increases the world's poverty level. So like what I've mentioned, here in our country, globalization is good, but not in our country because it keeps on dropping our economy. Second, increases the world's inequality. Like I've mentioned, the rich becoming richer, poor becoming more poorer. Enables multinationals to acquire more power than states and governments. So those who are top gains more power and those who are below doesn't. International financial organizations like the IMF, World Bank act in the interest of developed countries. So those who are in developed countries, they are the ones who actually benefit from it, the globalization. Next is imbalance between wealthy and poor countries that may lead to unsustainable situations. So unfortunately, because of that, the wealthy becomes more rich and then the poor becomes poorer. So thank you so much for listening. If you don't, if you have any questions, please let me know, and then I'll see you on my next video. Thank you. Bye for now.